Good morning, good afternoon, folks. I'm Torgersen. Welcome to our Sumo Logic live webinar on Cloud SIEM Enterprise. Quick housekeeping before we get going here. This live webinar is being recorded, and we'll make sure that you have a copy of it later for you or your colleagues. Maybe you're in DevOps or IT Ops and your SecOps folks couldn't attend. Perfectly fine. We'll get that recording to you. You can share it with that team as well. I'm also going to take some time at the end for any questions that you may have. And while I'm speaking now, just feel free to click the Q&A button in your webinar window there and just jot down your question. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can at the end. Now we've allotted 30 minutes for this. I want to ensure I get you folks back onto your next meeting on time, because I know you want to, because it's just back-to-back Zoom, right? All right, so with that, let's get started here. I want to talk about these challenges that we're feeling and we're experiencing along with customers and organizations that we speak to. And it really revolves around this concept that SecOps, something has to change. Now, things are changing, but the actual security operations are in dire need of a shakeup and a change made here. So the challenges that are happening, for one of them is cloud transformation. All this migration with this digital transformation that's going on right now to the cloud. Great work, great effort, especially in the time of global pandemics, to make sure that we can be working off the cloud and not having to worry about on-premises data centers and babysitting hardware and gear and closets and server rooms. But unfortunately, a lot of the security stack, especially legacy SIEMs, weren't actually built for the cloud. This has resulted in more gaps now in visibility of threats and other activities than ever before. Now, another challenge is the changing threat landscape and the shifts that we've been seeing in the threat landscape. Of course, a large shift alone recently is the large amount of population working from home, which right in and of itself has dynamically changed the threat landscape, and the attack surface has exploded as a result. But even before the pandemic, we've been seeing, again, thanks to all these apps continuously being migrated to the cloud, all these new services being lit up in the cloud, one simple misconfiguration could lead to a major data breach. And this attack surface explosion has resulted with devices. We still have mobile devices climbing at a much greater rate as the decline of laptops and desktops, Internet of Things devices, multi-cloud environments, containerization, modern apps like load balancing, VPC flows, and continuous delivery and microservices. That's a lot to cover for you folks out there. And it's a lot to keep straight, and it just keeps changing. And you're still on the hook to guard and protect against any threats that could be happening as a result of that. And that leads to really the third challenge here, is the alert fatigue that's being generated from all of those signals coming through, all those alerts that you're getting from your different detection stack and your security stack within your security operations center, or just within your security operations function if you don't actually have a formal SOC. There's just simply too many alerts. You can't get to them all in a single day. So obviously you're having to triage. You're trying to make best hunch guesses. You're starting to apply some other technologies to it, maybe some scripting, maybe some light forms of automation. Recent reports from the Dimensional Research 2020 State of SecOps and Automation Report, which you can get on our website at sumologic.com, actually indicated the amount of folks that are actually trying to address this with the automation, this pain point. And it was about 65% are dabbling in some shape or form. I believe 5% said that they haven't even started anything. And only about 7%, if I'm remembering correctly, I'd have to look at the report again, about 7% are saying that they've actually been able to fully automate some or all of their processes. The point here is that it's really no longer a human scale problem. People know it, and that's why they're looking to those types of technologies. But still, there is the concern that, what can you automate? How much can you automate? What's the danger if you go full automation? You've left the decisions to the machines, of course. And there's also still a lack of tool integrations. You got multiple consoles. You have alerts happening without correlation. You've got some false alerts, false positives coming out. Investigation processes are slow and inefficient because of the fact that you're now trying to take a day to create a dashboard and reflect one metric from just one tool, and it's tough to be able to determine your mean time to detect using the existing solutions. And unfortunately, there's also the cybersecurity skill shortage that we're still facing. There's simply just not enough bodies to help back you up, and we get that. We understand that. We also saw that bear out in the 2020 State of SecOps report as well, where they was 3 out of 75% of the companies said that they would have to hire 3 or more new dedicated analysts, security analysts, to be able to address all of their alerts that they're getting every single day. So this is no longer a human scale problem. It really has to be addressed with something new. So because none of the traditional approaches, like a legacy SIEMs, your outsourcing or hiring more experts, is going to work for a modern SOC, organizations need to actually have a modern SaaS SIEM to secure their cloud journey, to be able to match your changing attack surface, and also be able to bring innovation back into your SOC. And you might be wondering, well, gosh, what the heck is a modern SaaS SIEM, and what is it made of? So we took a stab at actually articulating that into these 3 lenses of what it really needs to have. And then of course, there's a bunch of functionality that you need to have to be able to support each of those lenses. On the left being cloud native architecture, very, very key. You have to have multi-tenant elastic scalability. This is not the time to take your on-prem, SIEM or legacy software code and try to just boot it up into the cloud in a single tenant instance. You need to have this multi-tenant deployment architecture, something where you're able to actually unify the different teams in your organization, your SecOps, IT ops, DevOps teams, all coming together, playing from the same songbook. All that data set is the same for consistency and, of course, trustworthiness too, that you are working off of the right, correct data. Something that's cloud provider agnostic. It's not going to pinhole you down into or shoehorn you into a vendor lock-in, and be able to actually support multiple different public clouds and your hybrid cloud infrastructure that you're probably already finding yourselves amongst. And in the center here, you've got automated security operations. This is key and paramount to what Sumo Logic does, which is our automated alert triage and our automatic conversion of the alerts to actionable insights. And I'll show that to you in the demo here today. I'm excited to show you some of the data that we've got. Automatically enriching threat data too, and using additional context and information because of pulling in data from your users, your devices, and also from your network data and network traffic as well. And a lot of out-of-box security content with hundreds of partners that are ready to get you up and running quickly to make sense of all that data that you're going to be feeding into it. But also key on the right here is this lens of a modern analyst experience. And this is where we bring to bear our highly tuned modern user interface, which was built by security analysts for security analysts. And that has resulted in a streamlined SecOps analyst workflow, along with event management and a Kanban style board view where everybody can be on the same page as a team working together to collaborate and address these alerts and these incidents as they come in. But not to be left out too, the ability and the power of having deep search across complex data sets and the analytics built in to distill these insights across large data volumes. And as I mentioned before, on the left-hand side, bringing in all that data, regardless of where it lives, regardless if it's on-prem, this country, this cloud, that cloud, and of course, hybrid is everything in between. So what we offer is Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM offering. And what it really comes down to is the ability to have a spectrum of use cases covered by our platform and an add-on. So the platform is our continuous intelligence platform. This is really going to be your security and compliance central log management solution. You get log storage with data tiers, extensive log query. This is probably fine for many customers on the call here today. I'd have to take a look at the attendee list here to see all you folks and maybe make guesses or gauges as to what your needs are. And of course, this is where the questions and answers come in. So go ahead and throw your questions at me there, folks. And this is actually where people are able to use Sumo Logic. This is like you can use it as a lightweight SIEM or just as an LMS, doing analytics and doing lookups and dashboards and reports. And we've got all this pre-built content as well, which makes sense of modern and cloud-based apps and technology to get you up and running quickly. So it's very rapid time to value. And of course, this entire platform that we're built on, it's all cloud native, running natively in AWS. But we also have this capability, this add-on, that if you want to also use us as your full cloud native SIEM, we have that. And it brings to bear additional functionality too, differentiated by our automated triage and the prioritization of those alerts into what we call insights, aggregation, breadth across all of your different data sets and sources, plus the enrichment automatically of that data with other feeds, rich out-of-box global content. I think it's more than we'll see today, maybe 300 or more rules that we've got that are curated and managed by Sumo Logic for our customers. And an investigation workflow for security operations that is, bar none, it's streamlined to actually get work done and get in, get out, and get on to the next alert that matters the most. These are the threats that matter the most to your organization. And it's delivered through a modern UX, which is what I've got here on the upper right-hand side of the screen. So just before I get to the demo here, I want to also just kind of run through like what are some of the benefits of what you're going to be getting from a solution like this. And hopefully this is what I'll be covering and articulating in the demo, is the fact that you're getting correlation-based threat detection through the fact that you're bringing in all those data sources, and we're correlating that with our algorithm to understand what an insight is. And we're automatically triaging, converting those security alerts into these actionable insights. These are our opinionated view of critical incidents that you need to address right away. And we show that with these little red triangles on the main UI, which you can see on the right-hand side here. Plus, they're bringing to bear the network and the user and the entity context that is necessary and critical for your threat investigations. And all delivered through this highly tuned user interface. This is built, as I mentioned before, by analysts for analysts. So with that, let me pop over here, folks. Bear with me. Jump right into the UI. This is Sumo Logic, and this is our Cloud SIEM Enterprise user interface. As you can see, this is a UI that's tuned for SecOps and SOC analysts and security professionals. This has got everything in your one single view. A lot of our customers choose to put this up on their walls in their SOC and get this quick bird's eye view and glance at all the status that's going on. So in a nutshell, what we're doing and what I've mentioned in my slides is to say that we're taking in all this data and we're normalizing it, we're parsing it, both your structured and unstructured data, and we're resulting those for you as we ingest them into records. And in this case, I've got a 24-hour view, and this is dynamically changeable if you want. And in this 24-hour view, it looks like we have pulled in 5 million records, up 1% in the last 24-hour period. And from that, we're actually then whittling down and synthesizing out the alerts, the relevant alerts. We refer to those as signals, not as alerts, because we've also done some enrichment to that data. And this gets into the user, the device, and the network information added to those signals. But there, right off the bat, we brought it from 5 million down to 83,000 signals. And apparently that's actually down, which is good. There's less signals than there was 24 hours ago, about 3% less. But we don't stop there. This is where your traditional SIEMs, even so-called next-gen SIEMs, are going to stop. They're going to leave you with these, what some would call a notable event or an alert. And from there, you have manual processes, or you're starting to do scripting, or you've hired more people, or you've outsourced it to try to make sense of, in this case, 83,000 different signals and alerts. So Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM Enterprise, we are uniquely going further. Oh, by the way, yeah, it's auto update. I don't have to hit the space bar or anything. It just keeps pushing updates with the UI. So that's why that just refreshed on me. Well, we're whittling it down to these 4 critical insights, these 4 single red triangles that appear in this 24-hour view. And as you can see, as I change the panel from maybe out to 72 hours, or maybe so far out as 7 days, the view in this insight radar in the center mass of the screen is going to dynamically change as well. So I want to walk you through that as well here, folks. You're probably wondering, what are all the different colors and the meanings as you focus in on this? So if I take you back to my 24-hour view, or even heck, I'll just do a 48-hour view here. What we're greeted with is the records, the 10 million records apparently in the 48 hours, which is up 1%, are represented by this blue outline going around. And as you can see, it'll slightly ebb and grow in ingestion with the number of records as time. And it's starting from the top 12 o'clock position and 48 hours broken up with the timestamps going around as we trace our mouse cursor along the way here for each breakout of the hour for all those 48 hours. Then the signals that are derived, in this case 168,000 in the last 48-hour period, are denoted by these cyan-colored or blue-colored bars that are emanating outwards radially. And as you can see here, apparently in this one particular period from 7:40 to 8:20 p.m., 3,464 signals were generated. And so it's ebb and flowing. And of course, in a production environment, you probably will have a fairly consistent amount of signals. And then of course, if you see a spike, that's when you could probably start to anticipate that you're going to get an insight trigger. Maybe there's an event actually happening or incident that's unfolding in your organization. That leads me to the red triangles or I shouldn't say just red, because we've also just added a feature in the last couple of months where we also color code them based on their status. So the triangle shapes are representing insights. And as I see red ones, those are indicating that those are new. And this is something that your analysts are going to want to jump on, right away as soon as they can. When there's something that's green, that indicates that one of your analysts on your team, your SOC analysts, have actually already addressed it and have closed out that insight actively. And these insights are floating here in space based on where they fell in the time span. And again, as you hover over them, you can see what those are. Now on the left-hand side of the screen here, I get to see my sensors that are running. I've got a CrowdStrike sensor that's feeding in data, pulling in 3 million records. I've got Azure hubs coming through. I've got, looks like a CSV2 running, AWS Guard Duties pulling in 900,000 records. And again, I can fold through here, fan through, and hover to see the number of records so I can get quick status and updates. But some might be yellow, indicating that maybe Windows is actually needing an update to that, or maybe something's been knocked offline for whatever reason. It looks like a Windows events sensor needs to be addressed, and it's addressing me as the analyst logged in, that I could go in and address that by drilling in deeper, by going in to view the sensors. On the right-hand side of the screen, opposite of this center mass, which I'm sure your eyes are visually kind of like gravitationally pulled towards, on the right-hand side are these different insight activities. Now we show the most recent insight that has popped over on this right-hand side in a quick little baseball card style view. And at a glance, you're able to see the insight, a unique numbering identification that we've added to each insight, so it's easier for you to track. Then there's the tactic or technique that's been used in that particular insight or this particular, this potential incident. Looks like it's credential access and exfiltration. And it looks like it's coming from this particular, this host, this particular device, probably a workload, I'm guessing. And then it shows the duration of the dwell time. It's been going on for about 5 hours, and we're mapping across both this little grid here from the time span and also the severity level from 0 to 10, with the middle line being 5. As you can see, there's been some stealthy activity here. AWS Guard Duty Alert. Looks like we've got a rare GIS Guard Duty Alert that came off. GIS is our global intelligence service, where we actually do benchmarking across all Sumo Logic customers that have opted in. So then you can kind of gauge your own organization's Guard Duty rare alerts against that of others, which is great. Then it looks like there was another alert, a pen test was going on, somebody with Kali Linux. And then finally, we had another alert go off here. Looks like it was traffic volume was unusual. And that was enough for us to deem that we needed to fire an insight for this particular environment. And so all this is great. It's high severity. It was made up of these 4 signals. And again, we're taking records down to signals, and we use signals to derive and create a story, stitch together a breadcrumb trail of what an insight is. And that's why insights are made up of 1 or more signals. And we can also see other users, my teammates in here, and what they're up to and what they're working on. And so again, this is the main page of what you might throw up on your SOC screen. But let's dive in real quickly here and show you what an actual user would be doing. They're going to be living and breathing in the insights. And so since I'm looking at a 24-hour period, I've got 7 insights here. I'm seeing them play out in reverse order here. And these are all new, it looks like. I've got a credential access and infiltration. I think that was the one that I was just looking at. So let's take a look at another one here. This one is 8:18, 9:47. Dwell time is 4 hours. Dwell time 10 minutes. Dwell time is a month. As you can see, each insight is breaking that out and tracking that uniquely for you. I don't have to look at it in this tabular view. I could also look at it in a Kanban style view. Maybe some of you folks prefer this more agile approach, where you could actually customize all of these different columns and just move your insights to be in progress, or move it to our special operations team, or move it to a tier 3 investigation or response team, or it's actually closed. Of course, I'm filtered to not show the closed, but if I took that filter off, it would show all the insights that would have been closed on the right here. So as I'm looking at insight, it's 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. I'm an analyst. I'm working on this team. I've got maybe 2 or 3 or 4. Some of our customers have got 50 or more analysts working around the clock, 24/7 shifts at huge, large enterprises. Well, they're going to dig into to a particular insight, and they're going to want to validate it. They're going to want to understand, well, what's happening here? Why did Sumo Logic say that I need to take a look at this? So then they get this graphical view again, where they can hover and understand all the different signals in this timeline view of what fired and was happening that then we deemed and pulled together into an insight. And each of these signals is represented by a color and a shape, determining the rule that had triggered it, or if it was an anomaly rule, or if it was a threat intelligence rule, or a third-party feed. And it looks like, so we've got some rules here that were triggered, and it looks like there was 3 or so anomalies. Now, if this was a whole cast of signals here, you can help zero down and just focus on certain signals by scrolling this bar across here and just really get in tight on just what happened on these last 3 signals here if you want. Or simply go down at the bottom here and you'll see in order how this particular insight is playing out. Looks like there's Office 365, initial access and execution. So we've got potentially malicious URL was being detected. Looks like it had severity level of 5. Threat intel URL, we had a match on that, interesting. Multiple failed authentication for a user, not good. User attempted to log in from 2 different countries within 1 hour. That's an interesting signal, and that's anomalous, good. User successfully did it again, 2 different countries in 1 hour. And of course, this could also have been, this is basically your land speed violation use case or light speed violation. Office 365, impossible travel activity, there we go. And so when you dig into a signal, now you're getting down into understanding the different records that make up that signal. And you can look at these records and understand all the metadata that was captured for it, the event time, the stage, the related insight. I can even see the rule that was triggered on that particular, for this particular signal, which is made up into the insight. And this one rule, I'm getting a little bit deeper here for you folks, but this is another feature that just came out, I think it actually came out today, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is Wednesday. These different, this view now gives you the ability to actually check the rule details, understand when in the pattern of time it has ever fired in the past, and then actually shows you the ability to actually edit the rule if you want. Like if something is triggered, when a record matches this expression, then create this signal. You can set it up as a prototype rule or not. You can see the history of it, the insights that are generated from it, and all the signals that have been generated by that one particular rule set. So if I go back here, and I'm looking at the different details that make up this signal, and I see the record, and I could export that if I want to CSV or JSON to my other tools that I may have. I could look at it in the overview. I could look at it in full detail mode. You know, some folks like to look at it in their own preferred way, and we're not gonna get in the way of that. And when I realize that I've deemed this to be an incident, this insight is definitely something that is of concern. And again, I'm looking at Insight 1178, initial access and execution that happened. So this looks like it was an Office 365 account compromise that was going on here. I then, as an analyst, can take ownership of it. I can assign it to myself. I can assign it to somebody else, somebody on my team. And then I can also start creating tags on it. Maybe there's some research that I've got, some tidbits, and this looks like an 0365 compromise. Or I could give any other indicators and tags that I want. I can also add comments in here, maximum of 280 characters. So this is all easily searchable within our search bar, which is available in every single page, wherever you are in the product UI, to be able to drill back down into finding where else this has happened and when else this has been happening. And when I'm ready to take an action on this particular insight, I'm moving from my investigation phase. Now I'm ready to start getting into the response phase. I could be handing this off to folks, the right folks in my company, maybe we've already invested in Demisto for SOAR technology. Great, we've got a great bidirectional integration with Demisto. Work off with Microsoft Teams, email the insight off to somebody or a team, send it to Slack. Slack's got a lot of great integration features too, with scripting and such that you can do in triggers. ServiceNow, send it off to ServiceNow. If you're a ServiceNow customer, get it into a ticket and get those folks, get this insight slotted in with the right folks there. And when you truly are done with an insight, then of course you want to close out that insight. And when you close an insight, you then get to choose what's the resolution. You know, was it just absolutely truly resolved? Maybe it was a false positive. An insight was triggered, but it was legitimate, fine. Mark it as such, let the system learn from that. Also, maybe there's no action needed, or it was actually a duplicate. And if you mark an insight as a duplicate insight, then of course we're going to learn from that as well and then suppress that, so we're not creating additional noise for you in the future. And when you're ready, you can give a little bit of a comment, and then you would close the insight and be done. And what would that do? That would actually move your insight. If I was using it the Kanban style view here, it would just move it right over into the closed category. Now that means you still got 6 more to get through that day, but gosh, 6 is a lot heck better than 168,000 signals and alerts that you'd have to manually sift through in a 48-hour period. And I think you would probably agree with that as well. Now, we allow you to dig into those signals if you want. We're not holding back. You can look at all of them to your heart's content. And you can dig through this. You can understand what's happening. We also allow you to, oh, let me go a little bit larger here. Nope, there we go. We also allow you to dig into the entities, the different workloads, the systems, the devices that are all feeding data. You can understand also the activity score of which of these IP addresses or host names or MAC addresses or URLs, which entity is actually having the most activity. And this one has the most activity, had a score of 20. Apparently this IP address out of an ISP provider, Host Europe, out of probably Germany. Looks like a bunch of interesting things are happening for this particular entity. I also have the ability to go into my records. You can search for all the records that we've been ingesting, the millions and millions of records, and we break it down by the different types of records. It was your endpoint records, authentication-based records, records that had to do with an endpoint-based process or notification, audits, and others. And then we color code those for you, and you can then filter these down. You can export them out, and you don't have to learn a new query language. We allow these filters. You can just start building it as you go here. If you're looking for something that came from the Bro, now known as Zeek network traffic monitor that we have, which is included in the product, here's a great example. You can just keep drilling further down and further down into whatever Bro has picked up. Gosh, I mean, that reminds me, we have the capability to do file carving, and you can use YAR rules that you pick up off of GitHub, any other repository that you want, a community of rules that others have written. You can apply it to then actually do scanning of those files too, like say malicious PDFs or PDFs or images or other files that we're carving out. We actually carve those out using our network traffic monitoring capability and store those in an S3 bucket for you for analysis later as part of the signals. So there's a lot to take in here. I'm looking at my time and I realize I've gone a little bit deeper than I normally do for you folks, but I wanted to make sure that you saw a majority of the product here. Here you can get into all the different rules. You can start tracking into threat intelligence. I mentioned that we have a rapid time to value. We get you up and running quickly because we've got, looks like in this case, on this particular environment, 302 rules up and running. And rules that are being managed and curated by Sumo Logic are indicated by the Sumo logo here. Other ones are copies, maybe edits that you and your analysts can be making. They're very easy to set up and create. And then we're tracking for you when those rules are actually firing a signal in the past period of time and how many times it's happening and whether it's severity. And of course you can enable them, disable them, delete them, or export them out as a JSON. It's a lot to take in. And the one thing I just want to leave you with is, again, the unique differentiator of what Sumo Logic is doing. We're not just a SIEM for SIEM's sake. We're providing all this SOC automation and SOC analytics for you in your security operations center. So let me switch back over here and close out for you folks. I've been talking about buttons and clicks and technology, but there's also the people. And we offer that support when you need it most, whether it's professional services to get you up and running and onboarded quickly, premium support to keep you running with a dedicated technical account manager, support, success plan, and execution. But at the tip of this pyramid or iceberg here, we also have our special operations team. This is the mission-focused, team-oriented threat hunters performed by our elite team of experts from a bunch of different three-letter acronym organizations across U.S. military and top industry organizations. And they're there, acting as your force multiplier, acting as your mentors if you're a smaller shop and maybe you need some more assistance in that realm. They're there ready to help. And there's a couple of different variants for that based on time and service levels too that you can get into. And so that is also at your disposal. So I just want to make sure you folks appreciate it, because I appreciate, that it's people and processes. It's not just about shiny objects and buttons. So at this point, let's flip over. Let me take a couple of questions. Some of you folks might have to jump, and I totally understand that, and I apologize for going long here. Let me see what we've got here. Good question. Gentleman is asking about, is there a way to customize the Kanban style view for the insights and have different workflow status? Yes, actually it is customizable. I didn't get into that in the product, but if you've got a certain workflow that you've already worked out and articulated with your processes within your own organization, that is exactly what we built the product to be able to do, is to be able to mirror that exactly and then track those as they go through. And each insight as it's being worked is being indicated on by the team member. So then everybody is playing from the same page. Everybody knows who is working on what, or in some cases, who's not working on something. And that's the time that they need to actually get in and jump in on that. Okay, great question. What is the difference between an anomaly and a rule? So our rules are, as I mentioned, are created and managed and curated by Sumo Logic threat engineering team. And they're working on that on behalf of the customers. Of course, if there's rules and source data that we get in that we haven't already accommodated, that's exactly the team that works on that to get it onboarded quickly and make sure that you have the data that you need coming into your environment. An anomaly is a specific type of rule, and I wanted to make sure that you understood what that difference was. And that is where we're actually looking at it with our algorithm to understand that there's something anomalous in behavior that is different than a rule, which is going to be more of a dynamic but statically set up, whereas the anomaly based rule is looking much deeper and looking back to it. Our insights that we are firing, we're continuously looking back, I believe 2 or 3, maybe it's 4 weeks looking back at data. We are not just looking at a narrow view of the last 10 hours or 20 hours and then we have to make a decision. We have the power of going back and looking at that data and then realizing, this is bad, this is anomalous, this is out of character against the other insights that we see and the signals that we're seeing. And then we're able to actually produce, generate an insight based on that potential incident that we've spotted. Great question. Severity level defined, if it's a rule that was actually created by our threat engineering team, they, as our experts, have defined what that level of severity is. Other rules that you create, you have the ability to adjust that severity. And in fact, if it's a rule that we created that you appreciate, but you just, you wish it wasn't a severity of 2. You feel it's more important to you or your organization because maybe you're a bank versus a retailer. In that case, you're going to have maybe a certain different degree of security maturity or concern, or maybe, unfortunately, maybe you have a use case that you were watching out because maybe you've had a situation, a breach or an incident that you are specifically monitoring for. Well, that's perfect, and that's what allows you then to change the severity. You simply clone a rule that you appreciate that we've built for you, and then you just edit that rule and then deprecate or turn off the rule that we were managing for you. Now you have the control to define what that severity level is of that rule to your liking. So if I didn't mention it before, folks, the product is highly customizable. Most of it by yourself as a user administrator, and of course there's all delegated administrative roles, there's multi-factor authentication, SSO. You're able to set that up for yourself for the majority, and there's also a good amount of customization that can be made between you and your customer support technician on the back end as well. I realize we have now gone 5 minutes over. Thank you so much for your time, folks. I want to be able to get you back on to your next meetings. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, this recording will be made available to you as well. And with that, thank you very much for your time and have a great, safe day.